I don't want to hurt you. I don't want either of us to end up killing each other, but we're running out of alternatives. Perhaps it all hinges on tonight. I don't know what bent your life out of shape, but maybe I've been there, too. Maybe we could work together. I could rehabilitate you. You don't need to be alone. We don't have to kill each other. Let me help you. That is a direct quote from not just the graphic novel, but the movie of Batman the Killing Joke. Hi, welcome to Unscripted on End Credit Reviews. This is Tyler from End Credit Reviews, it's just me. And I am reviewing the animated movie of Batman the Killing Joke based off the graphic novel of the same name by Alan Moore. Now, a while back, they were thinking about making this into possibly an animated movie like, is now back in the late 2000s, but because of I guess Watchmen wasn't really that financially successful, which that movie's underrated, by the way. Didn't really do so well, like I said, and that's where maybe we'll delay this because we wanted to make an R-rated movie about this, but Watchmen was not very financially successful as we hoped it to be, so we're just gonna delay it. Now, I know this is based off the graphic novel of the same name all the way from back in 1988. If you want to see my review on the Killing Joke graphic novel, just, click on the link below. But anyway, the movie itself got released actually about a week or two ago. I did not see the theatrical release version, but I decided to just wait till it comes home video. It would be, cheaper that way. And what some people have complained is that the quality of the animation is definitely not as good as like an animated feature film, because this was originally supposed to go direct to video, but then at the last minute they decided, hey, let's give it a limited theatrical release to kind of make more money. And looking at the quality of the animation, I'll get into later, but I should pretty much explain what this movie is basically about. So Batman the Killing Joke is about Batman, voiced by, of course, Kevin Conroy, who has voiced Batman in the animated series cartoon from the 90s, as well as the Justice League cartoon and the Batman Arkham games. He is pretty much Batman to me. He will always be Batman to me. And the Joker, who's voiced by Mark Hamill, who again will be the Joker for me, just like how Kevin Conroy will always be Batman to me. And he's trying to find where the Joker has escaped to. So then the Joker finds Barbara Gordon / Batgirl, who's voiced by Tara Strong, who actually voiced Batgirl in the New Adventures cartoon. And he pretty much makes her crippled permanently. And it's also in the graphic novel too, and the Joker captures Commissioner Gordon, voiced by Ray Wise, and he pretty much wants to mentally abuse Commissioner Gordon. And we also get flashbacks to the Joker's life beforehand. And yeah, it's a pretty messed up story. Now, a lot of people, when they review this movie, cannot really not talk about how it's weird how the first half of this movie had nothing to do with the Killing Joke graphic novel, but they just added in because if they didn't, it would be maybe 30 minutes at most, and they wanted a maybe hour and 15-minute runtime, so it kind of makes sense. Even the beginning has Batgirl voicing, "This is probably the story you weren't expecting," so then it's pretty much about Batgirl being, doing Batgirl things, and there's this villain named Paris, I'm trying to remember who voiced him, Maury Sterling? I don't really know who he is, but it was on IMDb, so I know exactly what his name is. I don't think I mispronounced it. He's like messing with her head. He's like, yeah, I've got a thing for you, Batgirl, which honestly a lot of comic book fans do. What's also interesting during these moments we have with this villain named Paris is that we see things like, call girls and cocaine and a lot of blood, stuff you don't really normally see in DC animated movies, except in more recent DC animated movies I've noticed a lot more blood, but yeah, you never saw drugs and call girls in them. So this is definitely a full-blown rated R movie. In fact, this is the first R-rated animated DC comic book movie, so they're at least one step ahead when it comes to Marvel in that perspective, in that market. Now, the movie itself feels like its own story in the first half, and then it gets to the Killing Joke, but the two halves, I don't know, they're kind of loosely connected, but if you think about it, it doesn't really, you could have probably watched like just the Killing Joke and not watched the first half, and it wouldn't make much of a difference, but I do think it is pretty interesting. Now, the big controversy with at least the first half of this movie is this, scene in which Batman and Batgirl get it on the rooftops. I know I kind of hesitate beating around the bush saying that. But yeah, it does happen. They have sex. And some people are like, well, that wasn't in there. That was just weird. But in the Batman, the animated series, that, DC animated universe, they did acknowledge that Batman and Batgirl did have a relationship at one point. This was in the Batman Beyond cartoon that was confirmed. And even in the Batman comic book series that's more recent right now, the Batman Beyond one, they actually had a great backstory in which at one point Batgirl was, dating, Nightwing again, but then she took, this, pregnancy test and she was actually pregnant, but it was more likely Batman's kid. And I'm like, wow, that's, very deep. They went there, but sadly she had a miscarriage for some reason or another. And yeah, it's not like we haven't seen this before, so having it again, it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, it kind of sounds a little immature when I say this. But what's weird is that when they are engaging in the act, the camera pans up to this, gargoyle, and I'm just thinking to myself, can you imagine that gargoyle being like one of the gargoyles from Goliath? Remember that Gargoyles cartoon? Imagine if that's one of the gargoyles people, it sees it, and then later it goes back to like Goliath and company says, hey, you're not gonna believe this. I just saw this weird thing, like Batman and Batgirl just had sex the entire time. It was just weird. I had to stand still. It's like the hardest time of standing still. Yeah, it was a weird impression. I wasn't trying to mimic any of the voice actors. I was just making some kind of but anyway, one of the better things about this movie is, again, Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill voicing Batman and the Joker, as well as Tara Strong as Batgirl. I know she's kind of aged a little bit because she doesn't sound exactly like she sounded when she voice acted Batgirl about 20 years ago in the New Adventures cartoon, but she did a pretty good job. I would also say that there's a kind of weird part for people who have never read the graphic novel. There's a part where the Joker actually has this musical number where he's talking about going loony, loony. And I remember I think my dad was watching, he's like, are you serious? This is actually happening? And I'm like, well, yeah, this happened in the graphic novel. And he didn't read the graphic novel. So it's interesting how someone like myself who's actually read the graphic novel watching this, and he's like pretty much everyone else who hasn't read the graphic novel watching this, so I think it's better if you actually read the graphic novel before watching this movie in a way, so things kind of make a little bit more sense. Also, another thing that I felt like was it was never in the graphic novel, but it was something that I felt like, yeah, they never mentioned it ever again, is the fact that there's a part in the story where they discover this warehouse full of these dead bodies. They're probably victims of the Joker, and I don't think they really brought it up ever again or even try to do these other things. And also the movie tried to be more action-packed because the graphic novel had various moments in it where there was action but wasn't as action-heavy as this movie. For example, in the graphic novel, when Batman shows up to the carnival to stop the Joker, all the freaks who are pretty much agents of the Joker, they all flee and run because they're afraid of Batman. However, in this movie, the Carney characters, the sideshow freaks, put up a lot more of a fight. It's more interesting too, but I'm not going to really spoil anything. I really like the flashback segments where it is kind of in a saturated color, and I like how Mark Hamill is usually more of his normal voice when he does these, so I thought that was cool. But also comparing this to the illustrations in the graphic novel, yeah, the graphic novel has much better illustrations compared to the movie itself because it was just direct to video. It wasn't like Batman Mask of the Phantasm that was made over 20 years ago. They also had, Kevin Conroy voicing Batman and Mark Hamill voicing the Joker. That one had, I think, maybe more money because halfway through production they decided to get a theatrical release, so they had more money to work with. But at the same time, it's kind of like that movie was made over 20 years ago, and the animation in Mask of the Phantasm is much better than the animation in The Killing Joke. So I felt like that was kind of a fail in a way. But other than that, I would say that The Killing Joke won't please every single person, because not every adaptation will please anybody, or everybody for that matter. The tricky thing about making an adaptation is that you want to be faithful to the source material, but also want to kind of stretch it out to or compress it for that matter, into a movie runtime. And the tricky thing about adapting something like a book is that you can put it down and read it multiple times. With a movie, you gotta wrap it up in one sitting. And I think the reason why comic book movies are so hard to adapt is that they have decades of stories and characters and other plot lines going on. So it's really hard to kind of compress at least maybe one story arc into a movie itself. So I know that there's various sacrifices that are going to be made and other things are going to be tweaked for certain runtime, but each of them have their own kind of results. So for Batman the Killing Joke, I did enjoy this movie. I did like it. It was the first R-rated comic book movie that was, animated in DC comic book. I felt like they should have made the R rating to other DC animated movies, something like Batman vs. Robin or Batman Bad Blood, or better yet, I think the Justice League, what was that recent Justice League movie? I can't remember what the name of it is. Oh yeah, Gods and Monsters, was it? Yeah, that movie not only had a lot of violence, but it actually had pretty much a naked woman in that. I'm like, okay, it's just rated R. I mean, you're just denying that it's rated PG-13, but it's R. That's rated R. Yeah, I know better. That's R, but I'm not much of a fan for the rating system anyway. But you're probably wondering right now, what is my final verdict? Well, the movie for Batman the Killing Joke does have its moments where it does shine from the graphic novel, but the thing is that the movie itself did have a opening segment where it was interesting, but kind of unnecessary at the same time, since it wasn't really directly connected with the second half, which is The Killing Joke. Some people are calling it Batgirl The Killing Joke. But other than that, I would say The Killing Joke is definitely worth watching. I really did enjoy this one, and it's probably one of the better DC animated movies I've seen in recent years. So overall, I give the film version of Batman The Killing Joke 3 stars out of 4. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe.